Welcome to our February session, our February forum. Today, we're delighted to have Hamara coming up to present on the Sasso chicken breed and what they're doing with that, and some of their innovations around mobile technology as well. So, Alan, I think started off as a irrigation engineer in Australia, and then found his way to River of Life, so he has NGO experience as well before getting into the private sector. And I remember that wasn't the easiest thing to move from NGO to private sector. But anyway, yeah. So welcome, Alan. I think it's always nice just to know who's in the room. So Alan knows who he's talking to. So maybe starting. So I'm Michael Dawes, and I'm here with our team, Alpha and Tony. So we start with Europa and then just move around to the back.
Yep. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Alan Norton. I'm from Bulawayo originally, born there, but been living in Harare for some years now. I'm married to Deb, got 4 children, 2 of whom are married. 3 of them live in Harare, which we think is the best luck in the world. And if you, like many people, the kids fly, and Charles have flown, and 3 are back. The other one is in Holland. But yeah, I'm an agricultural engineer by training, by profession. Don't do much engineering anymore. And I work now for Hamara. I've worked through NGOs. I put in an irrigation scheme for some small-scale farmers in the Lowveld near Renka mine. But in the last 7 years, I've been working with Sonderlang Ranching, or Hamara, as we are known, in various roles with outgrowers and so on. Pushing Sasso birds, and then latterly my role is farmer development. So it's very much looking at how we help the farmer to grow, learn, be more productive, be more profitable, live life to the full, and various things like that. So I'm going to share 2 focus areas this afternoon. One is the broader thing of what Hamara is doing with what's called the Hamara app. And to use a bit of focus on that with some experiences in Morella, promoting the Sasso and how the app is a tool that can be used into that situation and other ones. I'm at that stage of life where my eyes need help. So excuse me when I'm turning this way, but we can go to the next slide. So just briefly about us as a company, we've been going about 38 years, and started as Sonderlang Ranching in the southern part of Zimbabwe, and in the beginning doing ostriches and doing them very successfully and working predominantly with small-scale growers in rural areas. And then circumstances brought a change, and we had to make an adjustment to smaller poultry, broilers and layers and things.
Sorry, Alan.
We moved away from ostriches, moved to smaller poultry, and one of our key focuses is that we work predominantly with small-scale farmers rather than large-scale, but there are large-scale as well. But that's a choice and a decision. And through the experiences and so on with that, working with their lives led us to this focus of unlocking the productive potential of Africa. And there's a diagram below. We won't look at that, but there's just some of the components for that. Yeah. So one of the things that we have really seen with working with lots of communities, thousands of small-scale farmers, is that they need to engage with something that really helps them from their position of just being a small-scale, vulnerable grower. So out of that came this focus on these value chains, demand-driven, and with lowest cost of production. And basically the way this works is that the customer is over here, where you can't really read it, and the demand from that is all the way back through the farmer to the inputs and so on for that. Lowest cost of production is going throughout that, is trying to keep each part of the value chain at the lowest cost possible. Let's move on. So going now to Morewa experience, and then I'll swing back to how this affects us with the Hamara app, is about, well, several years ago, APT, Michael, Rodney, and people have connected with Hamara in the southern region. And I think particularly were impressed with what they saw with this branded bird called Sasso. And I think it was because of that I was invited to represent the company to a workshop. I can't remember, it's 2 years ago now, 3 years ago, where it was bringing together research organizations like Summit, and then a few representatives from the commercial world, and also representatives from government agriculture like Agritechs. And the result of that was an invitation to join them as a partner in working in Morewa into 2 wards, wards 4 and 27, and particularly with a focus on promoting Sasso as a sustainable form of agriculture for farmers. And some of you will know of PHI Industries. At the same time, they were going into Mbiru. I think it's Mbiru. Mbiru. So to talk about the Sasso bird, so it's a hybrid dual-purpose bird in that it can be meat and it can be eggs. It's also dual-purpose in that it can be pen-fed, but as it grows up, it can also be fed through scavenging, which is so useful. It's internationally recognized, originating from France. It's into many continents in the world, but Africa, there's very large players, talking about millions of Sasso in places like Ethiopia and Tanzania and so on. The thing about this bird is that if you compare it to a broiler bird, it's slower growing, which means that you get a firmer meat and a much richer flavor. And for many people, and part of the selling point in Zimbabwe is it kind of resembles your traditional roadrunner, which I've discovered over this last year is highly sought after by people, and they are very reluctant to give it up. So it's robust and it's easy to manage. I think to qualify that, if you brood well with them, they will do well later and they'll be easy to manage. If you mess up on the brooding, like a broiler, you can mess up on the trajectory of their growth. And the other thing is that it's flexible in that it's got different rearing systems ranging from indoor intensive in a cage to free ranging. Next slide. That's a picture just showing 3 of the varieties of Sasso that we have been marketing, Sussex Tea Rainbow and the Sasso C431. The main thing is that this one is grown for meat predominantly rather than egg laying. And so we're talking about 56 days to a decent weight, 2.2 to 2.5 kgs, but only a 60% lay rate for the females. Whereas if you go to the other extreme here, it's 84 days for the male to be big enough, that same weight, so it's much longer growth. But here the lay rate is stated as 80%. We have consistently seen over 90% with those. And the tea rainbow is a mixture of those. So this diagram here is to try and get a concept of the difference between a broiler chicken and a Sasso chicken. And we say the broiler is a little bit like your high-end, like a Mercedes-Benz, beautiful car, so many luxury items in it that if you don't treat it well, if you drive on Zimbabwe roads, as soon as you get off Lomagandi or 2nd Street Extension, you're in trouble. And it's not designed for that. It's not designed for rural areas. Whereas the Sasso is a little bit like Toyota Hilux. and it's much more sturdy, much more robust, more appropriate, particularly once you get out of town. Next slide. There's a comparison table. I'm conscious of time, but just showing a traditional roadrunner against a Sasso bird, the number of days to 1.8 kgs. The Sasso is less than half, 40% of the time to get to that rate. The mortality of the traditional roadrunner is much higher. The egg laying is much, much higher with Sasso, and the mortality when you're growing them up for laying is much better with the Sasso. So just a comparison, and it's an important one because when you get to rural areas, that is the predominant battle to get people to adopt Sasso. It's not whether they prefer broilers or not, it's whether they're willing to replace a roadrunner with a Sasso bird. And just to say that if you are promoting any form of poultry, if it's not a roadrunner, you have to get rid of the roadrunners. They carry so much disease and they'll just be a battle all the time. So one of the things that we have promoted with these birds is what we call two-stage production model. And the stage one is really the brooding. It's 0 to 3, 0 to 4 weeks. It's the time when the birds really do need to be well looked after, high standards, temperature, ventilation, and things like that. But once they get to that 3 weeks or so, they're pretty hardy, pretty resilient, and they can actually start doing scavenging for all or some of their food, depending what's available. So that's what it is. When you get to the teen bird stage and you take them, there's two options. One is to rear birds for meat. The other one is to rear the females for egg production. And in stage one, we work on a profit margin of 38 cents to 57 cents per bird. If you think about that for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, it's a very good margin. And you see our model farmer just now as well, his results. Stage 2 small-scale producer, it depends on the model. And we don't have time to go through that, but whether you do full-on scavenging for feed, or combination of scavenging and part feed, or full-on pen feeding, depends on what your profit margin is. What we have found on a commercial basis, trying to run Sasso, same as broilers with outgrowers, because of the longer time it takes, it's hard to make it be profitable in a pen feeding situation. If you go for this two-stage production, it's easy to make it profitable. So the bottom there just tells you about multiple options. Next slide. I think just to say with this one, it's just an example that we use in our promoting this with farmers, how with a $20 investment, buying 10 teen birds at $2 each, half of them male, half of them female, you breed the males up till they're 8-10 weeks. You then sell those, you get your $20 back, you buy your next batch, you've got another 5 females, another 5 males to breed up for the next batch. And all the time you're looking after the females and they're growing. And at some point they kick in and start laying eggs. And it starts to become quite a viable business. And that should be with minimal inputs if you've got good places for them to scratch and find their feed. Then our particular focus in Morewa is we were invited as partners with Summit. I took this out of their notes just to make it right, to complement the diversification and agribusiness scale, agroecological and climate smart innovation initiatives of Summit. That's why you need PhDs to go there, because you can't remember that unless you've got a PhD. Yeah. But there's special focus on promoting Sasso, the two-stage production, but allowing for natural uptake of broilers and layers. Just to say that we went into this as a business. Hamara is a business. We have to make a profit. We also want the farmers to make a profit. So then they will go on buying our chicks and feed. So what we did, just to show you, just to give you an idea of how we were in our intervention went in there, is we were doing training every 2 weeks. We targeted every 2 weeks. We also, every 2 weeks or so, we had a field officer on the ground visiting farmers and technical advice, farmer connections and coaching through WhatsApp and phone and so on. That was ongoing all the time. We work like many organizations, lots of WhatsApp groups. And then chicks feed and medications sales as there's demand. So part of the way we have worked there is the training. That's one of the farmer groups in training, and we had anything between 30 and in December we had some trainings of like 170 people. But in our trainings, we always try and include vision. We try and get people excited about what they can do with life and not focus on the problems they're facing. And we give the technical side of rearing birds. We talk about marketing. We talk about the app, the Hamara app. We talk about things like integrity and trying to improve their character. We do coaching, like this picture there with the arrival of chicks. Next slide. The other thing that we've seen, the chain of production is as strong as the weakest link. So one of the things we've really found is the heating of birds when they're brooding is just weak. If they use the traditional means with charcoal, invariably it's smoky, bad atmosphere, the birds get respiratory problems and so on. So we've intentionally promoted constructing flue. In this example here, the piece of iron which we had cut in half at the shop cost $9, I think it was, and the rest was farm burnt bricks and mud and so on. And that's the thing once it's made up, and the chicks are inside that, and it's a fully functional brooder as well. Next. Part of our thing is visiting farmers with the technical visits as well, and then coaching on Hamara app. In the right-hand picture, one of the issues about app-based technology is that despite what we think is good coverage around the country, when you go in rural areas, there are large pockets where there's no signal. And even if there is signal, the number of people with a smartphone to run apps is not as high as we had thought or hoped. And also their ability to afford data airtime. So as an interim measure in promoting using the app, improving management, we've been using Starlink, and we run it as like a seminar or coaching clinic. These are some results from that. So this was for 11 months last year. So total sales of Sasso chicks was just over 2,500, average of 243 a month, whereas broilers, which we weren't actively promoting, but we sell, was over 20,000, nearly 2,000 a month in 75 tons and so on. Number of farmers buying their chick mortalities at 5% was actually very good, we thought, for initial program. And then farmer profits at the end, which they tell us, we don't have the means to prove that. But to be honest, we were very disappointed with the Sasso uptake and did a lot of self-examination as what it was and went and investigated and so on. I think to summarize what we saw there is, one is they're not really understanding the model. And so what happened is the initial farmers who did buy the chicks and did the stage 1 brooding, when it came to 3-4 weeks when they should have been selling, the feedback we got was they decided they actually wanted to do stage 2 as well. Completely broke the model that we're trying to promote. So changing their mind and not doing their marketing. We made it very clear in marketing that we're not actually buying from you. We want you to sell into the community for stage 2 team bird production. And we did a whole marketing campaign and things about nutrition and so on to promote that. Yeah, and I think they were not yet convinced. What I forgot to put there is I have been astounded to see how protected they are of their traditional road runners. And if we are to make any advance, any farmer who starts with Sasso or broilers, layers, anything like that, has to get rid of road runners because they're such disease carriers. And I think it's their security thing because it's low maintenance. When all else fails, one of those tends to survive. So we came in, can you go back a slide? We came into a new season. We decided that what we would do is we'd fund with an advance a model farmer to do the stage 1. We'd also fund a person to oversee them and to coach, to work with them, and for them to establish their marketing network to sell the birds. So this is one of the farmers, Tanashi, in Ward 4. So they had a contract, a soft loan, starting 200 chicks plus feed for 4 weeks, the coach. And right from day 1, they started the intentional recruiting of stage 2 SSP farmers. So this guy did incredibly well. By the time his birds were mature, he had markets for all of his teen birds. And we've been visiting them and they're doing very well. Ward 27, not as successful. The grower there, despite our individual coaching of him, take him on the journey, he decided he wanted to keep most of them afterwards. So he sold a Mombi to pay us back the loan. But that was a little bit of a letdown on that side. So next page, just the gross margin analysis. There's the detail there about the chicks, the feed, infrared lights, stress pack, thermometer, and so on. Total variable cost 273 for those 200 chicks, and their sales 396. So a profit of $123, which is a return of 60 cents per bird. That's a phenomenal return on a 3-week game or 4-week game. It really is, and shows you what is possible. He had very low mortality, good management. He had the decent flu and things like that. Next one. So just some comments and lessons from the Moreo experience. There are many agendas we're competing with, and each demanding time from the farmers. I find it amazing when we set dates for training and stuff like that, and we thought we'd given a bit of advance notice, how often they'd come back and cancel. There was this program that needed a meeting, this program, it was political guys and stuff like that. So it's a real consideration. Farmers have a strong attachment to traditional roadrunner. The shift to Sasso requires them to completely remove them. Good agri-tech's work on the ground can make all the difference between commitment, action, and not. The 2 agri-tech's workers, the one in Ward 4, the one in Ward 27, are quite different. And you could see that with the results with the farmers and the attitude of the farmers. There's a strong element of expectation for free handouts. What are we competing with? We try not to do free handouts. We try to get the farmers to own things, pay for things and stuff. But when they're going to get something free down the road, it's a challenge. And like any new idea, it's a journey to bring about change. So how does this link into Hamara and the app? So right from the word go, we have promoted the Hamara app and getting farmers to go on that because it's being developed as a tool, as a comprehensive tool to help them manage all the different aspects of their value chains. So just to give you a bit of the background on it, we set out to build a tech platform where all the pieces come together on a mobile app. So we talked earlier about that value chain, lowest cost of production, demand-driven, that this serves as a portal into the ecosystem of value chains being developed. And these are some of the challenges the app seeks to address for them. So lack of knowledge, lack of markets, lack of financing, logistics challenges, difficulty of access to inputs, lack of tools and systems to facilitate production. So the farmer is dreaming about growing a profitable agribusiness and in some way that they can move towards their dream. But for a small scale grow, it's not really possible because they don't have the weight to actually tackle all those different things. The whole idea of the app is that it provides bringing the farmers together so that it's like groups, communities of farmers who can tackle them together, and they have the synergy of the ecosystem of structures on the app. So the app allows them to use existing value chain structures that they can participate in without having the setup costs and complexities to deal with. And this unlocks even more production potential. So how does the app actually do this? So we've got two journeys that we focus on the app. The one is the individual's journey, and we call it a business journey. So an individual who registers on the app for a poultry journey, it can be the same farmer who also registers for a tomato business journey or layer or whatever it may be. So there's that for the individual, and then the other one is for clubs, which is like a community of farmers coming together and getting the benefits of pooling resources. So the first one, business journey, helps a farmer move from a beginner to a professional. So these are the steps we go through down here. So that they can make more money and more efficiently through the agricultural project. We go on to the second slide there. So it does this by influencing and measuring the progress on their respective crops or flocks so that they move through 5 stages of growth to be rated as a professional. So if a farmer gets onto this just by registering his business, he becomes a beginner. To move up to apprentice, on the app, there are learning journeys. There are courses that they can run. There are 2 levels they need to do, as well as to record just 2 weeks of records for the particular business journey that they're working with. If they get that right, and at the moment the course is set to, you've got to pass it 100%, they automatically move up, and they'll see that on the app. When they open the app, the front page will show them where their club is, where their business journey is, and things like that, what courses are being run and stuff. And yeah, it's straightforward stuff, but it is definitely a journey. I've done some of them. Some of them I sailed through each little course and the multiple choice questionnaire at the end. Some of them I repeated 8 times to pass. And I think there are things there that just in the wording and that need to be improved, and we're on the way. So the club journey, this one now is where we encourage and promote farmers to come together and join with like-minded people to form a club. And the club then can grow in a journey from iron to bronze, silver, gold to platinum, and again by passing certain milestones to do that. And some of those, when you get, like, for example, from silver to gold, or from bronze to silver, one of the main things is submitting your KYC. KYC, you know your customer details, so that that's on app, that's registered. And then when banks and people participate in the app, that's already done for them, and they know the customer. So what we're trying to promote in the 2 of these, like I think it'll come up on another slide. I think we'll just skip that one. Maybe just do the next slide. Other features that we are addressing there or giving them connections to are markets and marketplace. A wallet, there's a wallet on the app, so they can run all their finances on that, like their business. In-app messaging, so like between your club, members of a club, or even between clubs, news and updates, training courses. So training's my forte. We put up trainings and they pop up on the app, and farmers can see that and register on app to attend the training. Then there's record keeping and logistics management. So this slide is a fairly recently developed one to try and give you an idea of how it works. So down this side is the business journey growth. So let's say somebody's registered for tomatoes. This is how they go from the beginner to apprentice, graduate, champion to professional. And up here, if they're part of a club, and the club is also growing, so they're going from iron through to platinum. And through our links now with banks and finance houses, we are now getting to the position where we can actually say, once you start growing, let's say you're just a beginner, but you're in a club that grows, you start having access to finance. It's not a lot in the beginning. Or if you're in a club that's just a iron, but you can grow through these individual business growths, you can start having access to finance. It's not a lot. But if you start going, let's say, to silver, and you're down to graduate, you now, as an individual, not to the club, as an individual, could have access and apply for the loan up to 500. If you get all the way down to professional and up to platinum, we're talking about access to a loan of up to $30,000. And, you know, if a small-scale farmer was to go to a bank, I think the CAB's agri-finance managers here, and say to them, I want a loan of 30,000, and say, who on earth are you? You know, why would we even think or consider to give you a loan? It's not like you're a big commercial farmer where there's all results and so on to see. We can now say, no, there's a whole program of development that they have been through that would give them. So I think just to start to finish, some key synergies we can see is funding structures. We are very interested, if we are talking to banks about saying this is an opportunity for you. We know banks want to invest in farmers, I think, but small-scale farmers is much more of a threat to them. And so they would tend to go for large-scale producers. So integration of platforms as well, co-branding and social schemes. So I think I'm going to stop there, and I think the idea is Q&A now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks very much, Alan. Any comments or questions for Alan? Let's see. Oh yeah. Okay. So could you wait for Tony to get here and then speak into the mic so the online guests can also hear. And for those online, please put your comments or questions in the box. Esther's got a question for you.
So just because I was in another meeting, it helps the business in South Africa that come to Zimbabwe. So like the Sasso, I just picture some people about disease and the promoted anything, how it differs with the dolphins and labels, because I think that becomes part of it, because I think you're right. It's a hybrid from Canada.
Can you repeat the question?
Okay.
I can't hear that clearly.
Esther's curious about the difference in disease tolerance between maybe a Sasso and the Roadrunner. Is it more tolerant? Does it need more care? And then I think the Sasso is from France. Is that right?
Yeah, that's where it was.
So that's the question.
Okay, very good. I would say that it, like its growth rate, sits somewhere between the vulnerability of a broiler and the vulnerability of your Roadrunner. The Sasso is somewhere in between there. It's not as hardy as a roadrunner, but then it grows much faster than that. But it's not as vulnerable as a broiler, but it doesn't grow as fast as a broiler. So a broiler typically is going to take 6 weeks to get to a decent weight for marketing. Your Sasso, depending which one, it'll be 8 to 10, even 12 weeks if it's a Sussex male. But that kind of gives you an indication of where it's at.
But you get an idea of the hardiness from the figure of 5% mortality,
Yeah.
which is very low.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Yeah, from the presentation, it was quite interesting, especially on the mortality rate, where we saw that the SARS rate, a low mortality rate for cats and even hens when compared to the roadrunner. So I wonder what are the issues? Because normally the general belief is that our roadrunner is much more robust than normally it's tolerant and something like that.
So I sometimes wish I could get into the mind of a small-scale grower and try and understand how he processes what he sees. For me, the results are obvious. If I was a small-scale grower, I'd get rid of my roadrunners, immediately clean everything out thoroughly, and convert everything to Sasso. I think that the roadrunner has bred over generations of farmers, and they just know it as a safety net. That when everything else is dying and failing, there's the roadrunner still going, still laying a few eggs, still hatching a few, and so on. And I think we're trying to change that mindset and say, but there's much better production here. And it's a little bit why we went to this model farmer. I don't like the concept of model farmers because it's a bit artificial. But we just saw that there were too many things with the community that we couldn't control. We were relying on convincing them through talks and demonstrations and so on. But at the end of the day, they still make their own decisions. So we brought in a model farmer so we could really control the brooding and growth. And there's been a huge amount of interest in it. We used to say, let's do another batch with a model farmer. Let's prove the concept again. And then we think about how we can really make it multiply in the community.
Maybe I can add from observations from the field. We've gone to the Sasso in Rio. I think anytime you get new birds into the community, they want to test first. They are marketed as these tasty and juicy birds. So when you tell the farmer to slaughter at 4 weeks, when you haven't tested the bird, they don't. In Rio, I think that was our observation. Then secondly, the pricing. In Rio, farmers, they're experienced in dealing with buy. Their pricing is not consistent. They look at what you're dressing, what car you kept driving. I think the 4 weeks were going as high as $7. I tried to buy the Sasso. I think mature ones, I was sold for $10. I was like, oh no, I'm not going to buy. So that affects the marketing, because the idea with the Sasso is you sell at 2 weeks. Someone can let go for $2 for a bird which is almost the size of a 5-week-old. And so I think that affected the marketing aspect and the adoption aspect of the Sasso. But on the advantages side, comparing the broilers, one thing that I've observed is with the lack of electricity in these rural areas, the Sasso offer flexibility. When the birds get to maturity, 12 weeks, you can just opt to put them on scavenging. No need to put on a refrigerator or continue feeding. So they offer that flexibility when there's a glut in the market for farmers to play around. And also they provide a good synergy with other businesses where we have promoted de-hulling. The de-hulling residues would go into the Sasso as feed, helping farmers have that all year round cash flow income. I think those were our key observation. But once a group understands the business model, especially the first stage including model, we had a good group in Matabele and Sanani and Siwani. They were doing very well with that de-hulling means Sasso integration. Yeah, those were my observations. Then the farmers tend to protect the Sasso. They treat them as special beds. You told them to let them go scavenge, but they don't. I tried that with my mom. She was still going to buy feed. We tried to tell her cut costs. They never done that right. She treated them as these special beds. So I think those are other mindset issues that we need to deal with when the cost-estimate profitability.
There's a lot in the mindset that we are trying to change with this. I think just to say, I don't think I said it, I think I was talking to somebody beforehand, that we talk about, trying to help the whole value chain, which includes the marketing side. We taught on marketing in our training. We didn't offer markets to the farmers. We promoted the eating of the birds themselves in their communities to increase their chicken intake and particularly increase their egg intake, to not because just nice, but because of malnutrition and things with children. Wife works with vulnerable children in education, and malnutrition really is a bother. It really is a huge issue. And if each household could get to eating maybe 3 eggs a week, there's a whole thing that is going to bring to their brain development and combating malnutrition. So that's the slant that we took it from. But we told them about how they could go marketing beyond.
Are there any other conditions besides the membership, the platinum, the what? And if you started doing, what is the highest one you have given, and what are the repayment percentages?
So if I'm hearing you right, I think in terms of, you're talking about particularly from the app. How's it working from the app? So the loan side is relatively new, but we've got outgrower farmers in Matabeleland who are getting 1,000 birds every 8 weeks, and we're putting out between 20 and 30,000 chicks a week to outgrowers, and that is all now starting to be managed through the app. That they no longer are just outgrowers on behalf of Sondolani, the company, but they get it as a loan, as a contract through the app, and it's managed by that. The thing that it's doing is it's causing them to suddenly have to jack up their ideas. So, for example, at the moment with records, the outgrower management and his team as field officers bring them like record forms. And generally, they're very good at filling that in and so on, but it's not 100% good. Now, with doing it through the app, if the records don't appear, the money isn't released for the next batch. So it's much more serious implication for them. So that's very much a journey we're on. The other one that we're doing is we've got vendor clubs selling live birds, so the other end, the marketing side, and we've got farmers who are selling through those vendors. One of those clubs is well over 100,000 in a few months that they have traded, that group of vendors on the club. I can't remember the number of them that are in the club, but that's some indication of the level that's going on. I think the banks, we've got 2 banks who have definitely committed to doing some trial runs. I think they are very interested, but like many new things, they want to see if it works and what the risks are. And it's a journey for all of us. We want to adjust how the app works so that it gives them as much confidence in the process as they would need to do it. I don't know, does that help?
That's something in few maybe months, yes, to see how it developed.
Yeah, I mean, the app's was started about 2 years ago, and it is a growing thing. It's very powerful. It's almost too powerful. And so we're having to put a lot of training into it. But as we see the benefits, we believe it will become a self-perpetuating thing, that more and more people will see the benefits and jump on, make the effort to do it. And let's face it, smartphones, using phones, internet, and so on, is increasingly becoming the norm, not the one for a select few people. So I think it'll take off pretty rapidly over the next year or two.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I have 3 questions for you. The first one is for the stages, the first and second stages. Again, what are we targeting in terms of the weights that farmers will pass on the beds to the
So from the stage 1 to stage 2?
From the stages, say we are going to sell the stage 1, we're going to sell the stage 2. What are the ways, the target ways that you are encouraging the farmers to get to? That's the first question. And the second question would be, are these farmers indulging in a particular vaccination schedule they should adhere to? Or they are just doing it? Because from my understanding, the moment we commercialize, that is when we start increasing the waste for the bed bugs. The next thing is we're going to have issues of diseases. Even if we remove all the runners and any potential source of disease, that's going to be a problem. And the last question would be, I'm just worried in terms of the number of technical visits for you as the residents. Is it economically sound to continue on the stream of visits, which is almost on the weekly or every 2 weeks? And how sustainable is that? When 2 weeks from this perspective from your side. I think those are the sense.
Good. First one, if it's for meat production, it's the same as a broiler. You're aiming for what the market wants. So anywhere between a 1.8 kg or even 2.5 kgs, it just takes a bit longer to get there because they grow slower. In terms of the first stage to second stage, it depends on which of those varieties you're on. I'm going from the top of my head. I think it's around about 500 grams at 3 to 4 weeks that we would target. But we don't, it's not so much the weight we're targeting, it's the age of the bird and its viability to become a scavenger and stuff like that. So that's more the selling point of it. And then in terms of the vaccines and stuff, I think all these birds come pre-vaccinated for what they need in these conditions. I honestly can't remember. I'm an engineer and I'm not a fundi on poultry livestock. When we were doing it on a commercial basis, I can't actually remember what was done. But this is very different from working with small-scale growers like mother unit doing 200 chicks. When they're 3 weeks, 4 weeks old, they sold, and somebody's buying 10, one's buying 5, one's buying 20, and so on. It's a very different scale you're working at in terms of disease potential that you have to deal with. So I could find out more if you want to. Give you a number.
Please do.
I've got a question online. Maybe I can just comment. This is from Rosemary. He's saying, is this an ongoing program, or is it just for a period and has now ended? I do not quite get how the farmers were marketing the birds and eggs. In our program, the farm gate sales were slow, and farmers ended up not seeing the money from birds.
In her program,
Yeah.
whatever that was.
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms, in fact, I didn't really answer your question on that one as well, but in terms of, is this viable, is it worthwhile pouring this in? It's because of the partnership with Simit, their interest in it, and to support some of the initiatives that we came into this, and therefore it made it worthwhile for us with a bit of financial support to do that. It's definitely not what the long-term intervention is. it has to be sustainable. We can't afford to be putting a field officer out full time for half a dozen or whatever farmers. And the whole idea is that this program, if it starts to really take off, becomes self-perpetuating. And then we would treat them as we do other farmers. We have got technical support at the centres, like in Harare, in Bulawayo, Gweru, and so on. And if there's a particular problem, we normally deal with it by phone, WhatsApp. In certain circumstances, it may warrant a visit. Depends what the issue is. But it's not sustainable as it has been. We have already cut down on the amount of visiting and that we are doing. And things are still going, still running. And we're very hopeful that the model of the market with the program of the model farmer will become self-perpetuating. In terms of the other part about what they're doing, selling at the gate, I don't know how
It's a USAID program.
Okay.
So we're obviously doing poultry.
Yeah.
But the market seems to be a challenge.
Yeah. And marketing is the key. And I think it depends what you're trying to do in terms of the long run. As I said, our approach has been, let's start with the community having more chicken on the ground, increasing their input on chicken meat and eggs, and then start to look at other markets beyond that. And I think we've done some work together with APT on exploring markets. And I think there's a very real option for somebody who has got the get up and go to go and explore all these different eating houses, restaurants, and so on, that Sasso becomes a viable alternative to road runners. Yeah.
What I don't think came out clearly was the use of the app in coordinating marketing between farmers.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use the app and maybe plan to start your project in week 5,
yeah,
and another one in week 6, another one in week 7. So you get a continuity of supply for that particular restaurant, because they don't want to be out of stock.
Yeah.
At some time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think, I mean, we're talking mostly about Sasso, but even on the broiler side, you know, marketing is a challenge. Wherever you are in Zimbabwe, marketing a challenge. You have to work out how you're going to address it, preferably beforehand. The problem is there.
One question is just on the mobile app. Is it easily accessible to all the farmers, especially to those farmers who are in national areas? And does the farmers need to be connected to Wi-Fi? If so, how do you plan to accommodate these farmers that to have access to Wi-Fi?
Yeah. Yeah. We have found that the amount of area that doesn't have coverage is bigger than we thought or hoped. And so for that reason, we have started taking a mobile Starlink kit with us so that we then get the farmers together and get them online. I mean, one of the trainings we did in December, we had over 80 farmers on Starlink, downloading the app, starting to form clubs, getting on business journeys and stuff like that. The thing there is that they are reliant at the moment on us coming back to them with our Starlink. If there was a viable way to put a Starlink out there that could be based there, we would try and do that. We have also been in contact with Econet, who invited us and other players to tell them where there are holes. So in areas where we've operated, we gave them feedback and said, that area. We haven't seen any change yet from that, but we're trusting that does happen. They were talking about putting in over 1,000 new base stations. So I don't know what's happened about that.
Can I just come in with another online question? So Arnold is appreciating the presentation, but he's expressing concern around traditional breeds being phased out and farmers fully adopting hybrids. What happens to the hybrids if they start to fail due to disease vulnerability, or they're too expensive to maintain? How will farmers recover what they've lost given that traditional breeds take generations to develop and adapt to local conditions. Many farmers are skeptical about this shift and would prefer a balanced approach that preserves both traditional breeds whilst integrating improvements. These, yeah, that's this question.
Sure. So we're never going to get rid of all the traditional roadrunners. They will always be there. I think what will happen is there'll be individual areas where they decide that it's worthwhile making the shift to Sasso, and so they will do it. But I think the ability to regenerate roadrunners is always going to be there. I think the other thing I'd point to is that I don't know historically how they did it, but in places like Ethiopia, Tanzania, Uganda, they literally have millions of Sasso on the ground now. It's obviously taken off. It's become viable as an alternative to whatever they're doing. So I would say something obviously happened that it convinced them it was worthwhile. I think in Zimbabwe, I think generally our level of education is quite high, and maybe it's a problem that people overthink things and not as willing to take risks. But I'm just speculating.
So Hamara done some investigations as to why those Sasso's been successful in these countries.
I know Ezra went up there, who used to run the outgrows, and I would have to go back to them and find out.
I think it would be quite important.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Today I'm not asking questions. Market helping market but maybe to add to Vida's question on financing, I believe the app helps close that information asymmetry gap between the banks and the financiers and the farmers. Because ordinarily the banks, they don't know what is the farmer doing, which activities is he doing, how much income he gets, where is he, and the application provide that financial track record that his farmer is in the second batch, third batch, and it helps with that financial inclusion. And I think this is a big opportunity for microcredit with platforms such as EcoCash or Mari. You can offer incentives for farmers maybe to sell their beds on Omari. They receive money on that Omari platform, and they can start to receive that microcredit. Because if you want to order for 10 beds, 100 beds, I think that's something that can qualify under microcredit. I believe there is an opportunity that can go there. Then maybe just to share, in December, we took some samples to one of the famous restaurants, traditional restaurants in Harare. We wanted, anonymously, we didn't tell the clients, we had test clients where we wanted to get their feedback. Is there a difference between in tests of a Sasso and a roadrunner? Amazingly, they couldn't identify the tests. No one could pick this roadrunner and the differences. But the feedback that we got from the chefs was, number one, there's convenience in terms of cooking. The Sasso is softer, so we use less energy. But the manager was worried that if you have an unexperienced chef, they may prepare it in the same old way with the roadrunner, and I'm not so much good in the kitchen, but to break the meat, and I don't know what the appropriate word. But there is some excitement there. But they were questioning whether we could find ways of making the chickens run to make the meat a bit firmer, which is something that I gave feedback to Hamara. Then maybe you can share your experience. I'm not sure if you are free to share your experience in Zambia with the mobile app and getting social investors, people that are investing from developed countries, investing in their best performing businesses as a way of financial inclusion. The application also offers that, but in Zimbabwe, we haven't seen those benefits.
I think first, just to make a comment on the banks, I think the big thing for a bank is they're managing risk. They want to minimize risk. So the more that they can be assured that the farmer has been on some journey with a track record that can reassure them, the more likely they are to provide finance. So those growth journeys is what helps to do that. In terms of Zambia, it sounds like you might know more than me about it. So I haven't been there. I've not been involved at all. Just everybody from the company who goes up there comes back with glowing reports about how well it's doing. I think from my understanding, listening, reading between the lines, Zambia has got a completely different atmosphere to Zimbabwe. They've got a government that are really working hard with the people, putting money into projects and programs, supporting endeavors. They have a program with cooperatives, which lends itself to the concept of clubs on the app. And so they're very excited about that and wanting to help, wanting to fund that. The reason Joel Cunningham is not here today is he's actually meeting today with the Home Sec of Agriculture or something, talking about these and what they plan to do. So there may be no more than me for comments.
I think the story came from Clarence.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you again. Yeah, it's a quite interesting discussion. From our working experiences, we were working with small farmers in Weza, where we've realized that there is now an increase in interest on the Sasso breed. But I'm not so sure whether this breed is readily available in the various communities which we are working in. Because, for example, we supported some of these smallholder farmers to diversify their livelihoods, and some wanted to do poultry, and the most common poultry was the Sasso. But some of the suppliers who came in told us that the Sasso diseases are not readily available. So I'm not so sure in terms of the distribution coverage targeting the specific districts which I talked about. Maybe this will be also the reason why we assume that there is no uptake of this breed, because I've seen an increase in the interest of this breed. And also maybe the other issue which I'm interested in is the app. Was as an organization, also we managed to support smallholder farmers to set up a digital agri app in Sasso, where we've also supported even with internet service. So I wonder how can we link so that these farmers within those localities can also benefit from this app, because I believe it will add value in their various enterprises which they're doing.
So to comment first on availability of chicks, so for us it has to be viable. You know, you can't drive 100 k's with 100 chicks. Costs you more in transport than the value of the chicks, and certainly than the profit we make. But my recommendation is, if you've got any programs that you're wanting to start, and for example, Sasso is going to be a focus area, come and talk to us. We have got trucks that are going on certain routes, and so we do have stop-off points, and it might mean that it works for us to do a detour via areas where you're working and to fit that in. So the best is to talk to me or Norma, who's the manager here at Ferrari HFC, and we can work on that. And then I don't know if there's a tea break this afternoon, but we could chat there about what you're doing in Malasekwa and see what synergies we could get.
Okay, another online question. May you comment on the level of biosecurity which the farmers maintain on their flocks? And then a second question, given a scenario the farmer is adamant to get rid of its roadrunners, are there any other measures of biosecurity the farmer may need to consider and establish and keep both breeds?
I would say don't even attempt to keep them both. It's just not worth it. You're playing around with very different levels of resistance and so on to disease. So in terms of biosecurity, the main thing with Sasso is the brooding time, the first 3 weeks. And we try and teach and promote the farmers to use the same level that they would if they were doing broilers. So clean bedding every time, proper cleaning of the house in between batches, rest period, clean litter, removing the old litter some distance away, cleaning the roof, cleaning curtains, all those things. We would encourage that. It's good breeding. If the bird is in a good, healthy condition, it means all their body functions are going to grow well, the digestive systems and so on. so that they're able to digest food and grow at a decent rate. So we encourage the same level if we can for the first 3 weeks, but thereafterwards, you pretty much, your Sasso, you treat like a roadrunner. You let it go, runs around, you're not vaccinating it. You might, if you see a disease, you might respond as you would with normal broiler, but generally they are hardier birds. And I think running around, getting the different minerals and so on from the wild, I think just helps to build their resilience. But just to say, I just wouldn't recommend trying to mix the two. Keep them well apart. And it's the same principle with broilers as well, that if you've got a batch of broilers there, you've got another batch there. If you're walking between them to feed and watering and whatever, you're the carrier of disease. And you have to really consider that in your biosecurity program, how you minimize the effect of that with cleanliness, hygiene, and so on, foot baths, stuff.
So I just want to ask in terms of the app. So recently we're in the web but we're discussing about this business applications to say that they usually die within, you said this is about 2 years, right? Running this app. So for us to prevent it from maybe to just bring another app which Hamara like introduced, how are you like in terms of marketing? Is it commercialized? Is it open source? How does it work?
You can go online and download it now if you want. Yeah.
So it's, okay, so it's
So
open source.
we're not breeding this to promote Hamara. We're doing this to promote farming, and Hamara happens to be the people who own the app and manage it and design it and modify it to meet felt needs and so on. We have not gone very public. I'm not aware of any time that we've done this publicly promoting it, but we've rather worked through the communities where we have got reach at the moment. But increasingly, we are talking to other organizations, for example, ones who are using drones to monitor field crops and so on, talking to them and how that might link up. Part of the whole thing of monitoring crops, providing security, which banks, I know, increasingly are relying on that as well. So we, I would call our role a facilitation role rather than we just creating our own app for our farmers. We're trying to facilitate something that serves much wider than just Hamara. So even to tell you, the Hamara app platform is now independent of Sondolani Hamara.
So
We treat them as one of the customers, as we do other organizations who want to put a contract on the app or something. It's the same. We treat them like that.
So do they, so a follow-up question, do they, since they are now a different entity, do they make money out of that from the application? Or in terms of running, maybe, let's say maybe farmers, we have e-wallet, maybe as the app grows, now maybe there's need for customer services. A farmer asks certain things in terms of, Q&A questions from the applications. Yeah, there are personnel that needs to be employed. So I'm just looking at all of that in terms of the application section.
So I'll try and understand what your question is and address it. But basically, the app is there. So, for example, if Sondolani says we've got 135 outgrowers in Kobo, which is what they do have, how could the app help us? We say, we'll take the bother from you of managing the finance. Rather than you dealing directly with the farmers on the finance, send it through the app. Our systems will then track what they're doing, and there will be requirements, for example, keeping proper records and being viable and stuff like that. It will be done through the app. So in theory, that could reduce their staff requirement to oversee and manage it. The app, though, needs to make money just to run itself. So there is a small commission that is charged, depending what it is, like 0.5% or 1% or something, depending what it is, which in the grand scheme is pretty small.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the good presentation, Alan. Just a follow-up question on the app. Does it have, I remember you talked of it having some courses that farmers can take on. Is it something that they can do offline? Like if you download it and you download the courses, you can then do the courses offline when you're gone. For instance, I heard you saying you use Starlink. So maybe by the time you get there and they download, can they be doing the courses when you're gone?
I'm pretty sure that is now working. I haven't tested it, but that was the plan, is that people could do it offline like that. Yeah.
Okay, another question from the chat. Patience is asking, do we have any deficits in terms of the supply for Sasso locally, regionally, or internationally? And then she's saying, I think I understand this as, what is your current supply? How many chicks maybe per month within Zimbabwe?
I should have looked that up. I know that for several months now that the demand has been greater than supply. So the way we tell that is that they're booking so many weeks in advance. In other words, they can't just book and come on Friday and get. They're booking maybe 3-4 weeks in advance. So, but it's somewhere, I think, between 20 and 30,000 a week of Sasso that we are selling as chicks. But I can find that actual figure.
Okay. We go. No, not quite.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I have a suggestion. What if you're trying to like farmers share market access? For example, let's say you share the prices. For example, one bill of Sasso is costing about $10. Then you share, let's say you take $30 and you charge a certain percentage. You're paying the farmers at the same time. You're also making a percentage.
So we're doing that in Bulawayo, and Clarence, who's our marketing manager, is looking at that for Harare. But like all of these things, it doesn't just happen. It's a whole process to get established and work out how to do it, because we're not the only people who've dreamed of live bird sales and markets and stuff like that. So for the what I call northern region, it will be coming that we do it. But in the southern region, yeah, they're selling a lot. That's that one club I was mentioning, Million Years Marketing Club. They are doing huge volumes every week. So they are up to silver level, I think, as a club, and should be gold any moment as well. So, yeah.
Another online question. Please could you provide some insights on the housing setup for the Sasso layer breeds, particularly in relation to the movement of the sun?
Same principles apply for any chicken house that you want to manage your temperature. And so whatever house you build, whatever type of chicken poultry you use, always do an east-west axis and close off the end with the rising sun, close off the other end with the setting sun, because that's the heat. And so minimize the amount of sun that's coming in from the side. So we've got designs on houses, recommendations on roof height, like 3.5 meters dropping down to 2.4 meters or so on, and the maximum width to facilitate air circulation, because ventilation is as important as keeping birds warm in cold weather. But yeah, it's pretty much the standard design of any poultry house that would apply.
So I've got a message here from Max Visi, who's online, and he wants Rosemary, who's also online, to know that Pangani cannot keep up with the demand for Sasso eggs. So, are there any more contributions or questions? If not, yeah, we need to call it a day, I think. So, to Alan, thank you. We were scheduled to have the AGM today. However, we do not have a quorum. So we're going to push it to next month, March. Yeah. Next month, we'll be featuring Minerva, plus one other, who will be talking about agricultural insurance, the various packages that they have for smallholders and a few for commercial. So I think that brings us to the end of our proceedings. Thank you very much for the attention, and yeah, it was a really good discussion. So I don't the topic of should invest. Thank you, everyone.